The first thing let's do here is take a look at the reference images and also bring a few into the 3D view here so that we can get a better sense of what we're going to build. So first of all, I'm just going to hit the A key and select everything in the scene and hit delete. So we just begin with a fresh scene. Now I want to bring in some reference images so we can see them from any orthographic view. And what I mean by an orthographic view is you can see here currently we're in user perspective as we tumble around here. But we can also hit the 1, 3, or 7 keys to go to orthographic views. So I'm going to hit the 1 key on the number pad. And now we're in the front orthographic view. And if I hit the 3 key on the number pad, we're over here in the right orthographic view. And if I hit the 7 key, we're in the top view. And we can always tumble back around here into perspective views. But I want to bring in some images for each of those orthographic views. Now, personally, as I'm creating something, I like to keep the positive x-axis here, you can see up here, on my right. So I kind of always know that if I get back to this position, I kind of know what orientation I'm in. It's just a personal thing. It's not something that you have to do. But I would suggest kind of, as you work, finding a way and an orientation that works for you. But for me, this kind of works well. So first of all, I'm going to hit the 3 key, and that'll take me to the right orthographic view. And I'm now looking down the x-axis this way. I'm looking down it this way here. So I'm going to hit the 3 key. And what I want is the motorcycle to be facing this way, the front over here. So that means I want to bring in the left image. The way I have them labeled is as if you're sitting on the motorcycle. So if I'm sitting on the motorcycle, on my left, I want that side here. So I'm going to press Shift A and go to Add Image, and I'll choose Reference. So I'm going to click here, and now we're going to browse to the Reference Images folder. And in here, I've got a couple different collections of images. So one, I've got just some images that I found on the internet. The other ones are from when I went to the Harley-Davidson Museum not too long ago. I took some pictures with both my DSLR camera and my iPhone. So you can see the images here where I used my camera, and then the images here where I used an iPhone. And the iPhone is just really great for low light photography. And here in the museum, it was pretty low light. The DSLR, because it was so light, I had to open up the aperture really wide, which gives you a very shallow depth of field. So it really wasn't the best for a couple different kinds of images. But what I've done is I've gone into Photoshop and kind of configured a couple of images to have a left side, a right, a front, and a back view that I want to bring into Blender's 3D view. So as I said, this first image, I'm going to bring in the left side, and I'll click Load Reference Image, and there it is. Now if I turn on the Move Manipulator here, I can grab it and bring it up. It's kind of hard to see where that green axis here is. If I tumble around, you can kind of see that here. And I can maybe take that and drag it up just a little bit so it's kind of sitting on that green line, but it's kind of hard to see. So if I hit the 3 key again, and I select that image, it's called empty here because it's just an empty object with an image in it. And I'll change this to left side. And down here on the properties of that image selected, I can turn on opacity. And when I do, you can see through it to that green line there, that y-axis, and to the grid. So now I can move this up and down and get those tires kind of sitting on that green line. But how big is this? Is it properly sized for real-world scale? Well, seeing as one of these squares is 1 meter, that's probably a little bit big. That's like 4.5 meters wide or something. So I think that's a little too big if we're going to get this in real-world scale. So what I can do is create a 3D object, say a cube, and get the dimensions of that cube so it's exactly the length of the wheelbase from one center of the wheel to the other. So I happen to know, having done a little Googling, that the wheelbase of this particular motorcycle is 59.5 inches. Now, in Blender here, if we hit the N key on the keyboard, we can see our transform settings, X, Y, and Z. And we've got scale here, but we don't have dimensions because we're dealing with an empty object. What we need to do is create a 3D object. I'll press Shift A to bring up the Add menu again. And let's go to Mesh and Cube. And now we have the dimensions of that cube. But they're in meters, or the metric system, as opposed to imperial in inches and feet. So what we can do is just come in here to the y-axis. You can see that the y-axis is here. And we can just type in 59.5 and double quotation marks for inches, and then hit Enter. And now that converts it automatically to 1.51 meters. So the width of that wheelbase from here to here really needs to be this wide. All right, so I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to press SZ, scale it down like this. And then I'm going to tumble around and scale it in the x-axis. I'm going to press SX and scale in the x and bring that in quite a bit as well. So now we've got this piece here that is the exact wheelbase of our motorcycle. All right, so if we bring this up a bit in the z-axis, and then I click on that image, the left side image here, I'll hit the S key, and let's start scaling this down until we get it to be about the right width for that wheelbase. So let's see, I'm going to bring this down a bit. So it looks like it needs to come up a little bit more. I'm going to hit the S key again and scale up. I can also bring it over just a little bit in the y-axis. And that looks pretty good, like we're going from the center of one wheel to the center of the other right there. So that is the size of the motorcycle in real world scale. All right, so we can take this down, put it on that y-axis right there. There we go. And I'm going to tumble around, and then I'm going to take that image and move it back in the x-axis here. So whenever we hit the 3 key, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see this right on the y-axis. From the right orthographic view, we'll be seeing the left side of the motorcycle. All right, so this cube I'm going to change to reference wheelbase, so I know what that is. And then I can hide it here in the outliner right there. Now we just need to bring in the others and get them to match the size or the scale of this as well. So in the next video, we'll begin bringing in the other images.